Welcome to WizeUp. I'm Paul Arthur. Going to talk today about digital ID and digital currency. I mean, there's recent federal legislation that impacts your personal privacy. And before we dive into that, a quick reminder to hit subscribe and tell your friends about us as well. Our guest today is Sharon Polsky. She is the president of the Privacy and Access Council of Canada. And you can also follow her at X at Polsky Says. And Sharon, good to have you with us.
Wonderful to be back.
Yeah, lots to talk about. No shortage of things, for sure. I wanted to start with, Sharon, just this recent news of Canada's Privy Council office, the PCO. They have a behavioural science unit. I kind of went, they have a what? that shapes public policy and influences citizen compliance. I always like that word, comply, or else. This is done through psychological experiments and data modeling, apparently. It's called the Impact and Innovation Unit, which bases its framework on a UK government initiative and tools that were issued by the World Health Organization. Always trust those folks, you know. They've and apparently they've been doing this for years, apparently especially during the COVID years there. So, you know, when I hear things like this, I kind of go, wow. I didn't know about that, and I think we should be concerned about this. Now, Canada's Privy Council, I think a lot of people, too, don't really know what that is. I think there's several hundred people in it. I think all former cabinet ministers get posted to it for a lifetime appointment, I believe, but they are to advise the government, right?
And they do, as do more than 400 communications specialists in the government of Canada.
Okay. So this actually carries some weight then, what they're doing. And, so these experiments, data modeling, designed to influence you and me and everybody watching to, I think, comply with whatever the current government's agenda is. Should we be concerned?
Well, if the government was more forthcoming and actually told us about these things as they were doing them, if the consultation was genuine consultation, I mean, I think Canadians would have more faith in what our government is doing with our tax dollars, with our lives, to us. But it's a regime that used to be at the top globally for access to information and accountability. And over the decades, that has just dwindled so that now, as you've discovered, we find out these things long after the fact, and then the government wonders why people, their trust in government and federal public institutions is dwindling. Well, you know, behavior, what was it Mr. Trudeau said, choices have consequences? I guess this is a consequence of that choice.
Yeah, well, this particular behavioral science unit apparently was introduced by Justin Trudeau, so that says something right there. Let's switch prime ministers here. Carney recently announcing that the federal government is developing a national digital ID system. Well, they're trying to. Apparently, the issue is they don't have the expertise in-house to do so. So they want to farm this out to firms that have the expertise. I wonder if it might be a Chinese firm. I sure hope not. Are we going to farm this out to some company outside of Canada? Any thoughts on this?
Well, will we even know? And the problem here is that so many companies, we don't have the talent in Canada. I mean, you look at it, investors in the past few months, more than $100 million has fled Canada. Real estate is at an all-time high for availability, an all-time low for pricing. Things are changing, and you have to wonder, if it's not available in Canada, that used to have a manufacturing economy, hasn't had that in a long time, where will they get that? Typically, it's an American supplier, but what people often don't look at is who owns the company, who are the shareholders, who's behind the curtain. You know, the Wizard of Oz, it all looked very, very impressive until you look behind the curtain and find out what is the real situation. And when a government is so sheltered and secretive as the Canadian governments have been in recent decades, as other governments are, we don't know. That's the problem. In a democracy, we're supposed to be able to find out. I mean, granted, if it's national security, if it is genuinely a matter of national security, that's one thing. But
Hmm.
now so much gets shielded behind a claim of national security or a claim of whatever. We don't know.
Yeah, we do need to hold their feet to the fire on this one, I think, and make sure that, I mean, yeah, if you have to rely on another country for issues that relate to national security, you've got a problem.
We
Um,
do, but
it,
it's also because Canada is part of the Five Eyes, which is the
mm,
information sharing consortium that
yeah.
came about just at the beginning, in the middle of World War II. And they still share information, but what's happened now, whether it's digital ID or central digital currency, centrally controlled digital currency, or
Hmm.
any number of other measures, each of the Five Eyes countries tries it. They try to implement legislation. They try and get, encryption busting legislation or some sort of surveillance legislation or something through, and it fails, it fails. Whichever country finally is able to, the rest of them go, see, that country did it. We should also be able to.
Hmm.
And it's really become a monkey see, monkey do situation that if it wasn't so profoundly dangerous, it would be entertaining.
Well, yeah, again, privacy matters. It really does. And of course, digital ID, a lot of people like the idea because it is very, very convenient. Instead of having, different cards, et cetera, you have to go through and present physically. It's all on your digital wallet, essentially, right? It's all very handy for sure. But now, first of all, the government is saying this won't be mandatory. My question is, how long will that last? Before it does become mandatory, as it is in countries like China, for example. And of course, that's where the concern comes in. Governments might use digital currencies and IDs to monitor their citizens to make sure they're complying with, again, whatever the government agenda is at the time. They can crush dissent that way. China uses digital ID to monitor their citizens. They have a social credit sort of score system, right? So they can, I guess, withdraw certain privileges that you have in that society, right?
Well, that's the problem. Our Charter of Rights and Freedoms, our rights are granted to us. If they are a right that is granted, then that grant can be revoked.
Hmm.
That's a fundamental problem here. China certainly has what we are told is a social credit system, although curiously, I have a colleague whose family is still in China. They have been Canadian citizen for a very long time, and I said, is it true that this really goes on? And the speed that they responded, it made me wonder. No, no, no. This doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. Absolute denial. What happens here? Sure, they'll put it in as a temporary measure. I think it was Australia had a temporary measure also, but by regulation, they just changed it. It's now mandatory. Order in council, regulation changes. That
Right.
doesn't go through the parliamentary process. And even if it is genuinely, truly voluntary, there's a lot of people who don't know how, who don't have the facilities, a computer, a smartphone,
Hmm.
who are beyond using them. My elderly parents, they used to use computers, run businesses, sure, no problem. And they're not alone. They no longer use computers. They
Hmm.
need dumb phones. It's
Yep.
beyond them now. How many people will be caught in that sort of snare, and they just won't be able to qualify for anything because they won't be able to log on. They won't know how.
Yeah. Makes it a real challenge. Yeah.
That's right.
There's some issues with this for sure.
The
Um,
convenience is outweighed, and from a privacy perspective, the convenience of some of these things, when you don't know who is running the show, what their motives are, where that information is going to be shared, who has access to it, and they just say, trust me. I like to have proof that it is trustworthy.
yeah. So we have a job ahead of us then to make sure that these concerns are voiced. So talk to your MP and let them know what your concerns are for sure.
Absolutely.
Okay. By the way, I should mention this. So just today, as we're taping this, I saw the news that a lawyer who's, I believe she was involved in defending, some of the Freedom Convoy people and that sort of thing. Well, she did some cryptocurrency transaction, and one of the major banks debanked her. Like, what?
I saw that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you go like, oh, you got to be kidding. So, I mean, I think they're trying to frame it. Oh, it's around cryptocurrency concerns. So we don't know for sure, but it sure looks and smells like, I think this maybe has something to do with the whole, your political outlook, your worldview, that we should have freedoms and that big government, is not a good thing. And so we'll just debank you.
Well, as you say, at this point, we're speculating. I did see the letter that
Yeah.
she received from the bank. She posted it on X, and it said because of risk. What sort of risk? What the nature of the risk is? Who knows? And of course, whether it's a bank or an insurance company, there's a lot of businesses, industries that discriminate based on risk, and they're allowed to.
Hmm.
They've gotten the approval over the years that they can discriminate based on risk, and it's within their purview to do that. At least they did give her some time. They didn't just pull the plug on her account, but it certainly does put a fear in people.
Oh, yeah.
The fear of retribution is enough to silence people. And I've seen that myself, where people are afraid to say anything online or in writing or even in person now, because there's always cameras around, there's always someone listening or watching, and you don't know what the outcome will be. And people are being silenced. They are,
Hmm.
as it's called, self-censoring. There's a danger in that in democracy, especially.
Yeah, well, some people are saying perhaps it is safer to bank with a credit union rather than the big banks. So I don't know if you have any insight into that or.
I know they have different rules. There's still reporting requirements to FinTrack. So if there's any suspicious behavior,
Hmm.
although I have a friend, we've known each other for decades. She used to be quite high up in one of the major banks, and she said people have been reported for suspicious activity, such as, and she said she assured me she wasn't kidding. They showed up in the bank one day with a black hoodie with the hoodie pulled up. That was suspicious, and they were reported. Whether something happens to the report, whether they're investigated, we don't know. It goes into a big black hole, and
Wow.
unless you're inside of the organization. But really,
Yeah, that's crazy. Can we talk about AI for a second here? Artificial intelligence, right? Taking the world by storm. So many people using it now. There's, universities, teachers, high school teachers concerned that things are just being, they're not writing it themselves and they're using AI. It's so convenient, right? But it does present some privacy concerns, right? There's a lot of data going back and forth there.
well, it's more than just privacy concerns, but certainly people are not thinking for themselves. And there's already studies coming out saying the more you use artificial intelligence, the smaller your hippocampus, the less it gets exercised. They're making us stupid, basically, because the convenience of relying on technology. I mean, think of it. We used to know people's phone numbers. How many people know their spouses, their kids' phone numbers? They just say it. It's convenient to just speak it. We don't
Right.
remember things anymore. We are becoming overly reliant. Why? Because we're being told that everybody's doing it. And we go right back to the psyops, the psychological manipulation. Think of it like we're children, because we're just kids in big bodies. Everybody's doing it. You don't want to be the only one who's not. It's
Yeah.
FOMO, fear of missing out. So we do jump on the artificial intelligence bandwagon. We do use these things because also the people who are designing the products also fall into the same trap and embed our AI into the whatever it is we're buying. So we have a hard time of escaping it. A lot of people are hankering for
Hmm.
old-fashioned cars that aren't computers, old-fashioned mechanical appliances that aren't computerized, that aren't electronic digital surveillance bots in our laundry room and in our kitchen and our televisions.
Yeah. So what is the risk if you use AI, on your website or if you're writing an article or something? What could happen? I guess what's the worst that could happen here?
Well, it's the same sort of thing. A colleague in the Calgary Police Service today sent me a note out of a a law enforcement magazine, the Winnipeg Police Service has been piloting a voice recognition system. So if you call non-emergency police non-emergency number, it's artificial intelligence that will now help you through. So whatever the information is you give, whether it's to a voice activated system like this, to a website form that you fill out, to anything that has artificial intelligence in the back and you don't even know that it's there, when you divulge anything, including saying something, because your voice, your biometric, could be captured and used for artificial intelligence training, everything you say is being captured. So your
Wow.
biometrics, the words that you use, the Siri, the Alexa that's sitting in your home, and of course runs on artificial intelligence. And we're told, don't worry, it just listens for the wake up word, but it's listening all the time to everything. And researchers have found, and some of these companies have been sued because it doesn't just listen for the wake up word, it records other comments as well. So whether that's the sound of
Okay.
you having a squabble with someone in your family, or saying, everybody, we get emotional sometimes and we say
Yep.
things that out of context would get us arrested, or they
Wow.
hear, very personal, intimate
Okay.
conduct.
Yeah.
Do we really want this being captured and then shopped around till we don't know what companies, where in the world they are? And as Cardinal Richelieu said in the
Hmm.
1200s, 1600s, give me 6 lines written by the hand of the most honest of men. I'll find something in them with which to hang him. You
Yeah.
take our words out of context.
Well, Microsoft has been in the news recently here around these kinds of issues. I think Denmark has switched to a different software provider now. There's concerns that, again, all this data that goes through the system, they can't guarantee that it won't be passed along to authorities in another country.
Precisely. And everybody has wondered about that. Max Schrems, at the time, he was a law student in Austria, I believe, and he said, no, no, no. The agreement between the United States and Europe, it's not good enough because we don't know in Europe that if there's a problem, we will have any recourse with American companies. And it turned out that he was right. So the Americans had to change their whole system of how they protect and send information back and forth with Europe to give the similar level of protection. Of course, it can't happen. And there's still speculation. And Max Schrems is now a very well regarded lawyer in Europe, and he hasn't let go. But somebody else took up the challenge this time, gave him some ammunition, if you will. It was in the French Senate just a couple of weeks ago. Is it Microsoft or Meta? Uh, they were appearing under sworn testimony and said, no, information that comes from Europe into our systems, we cannot guarantee that it won't be divulged to the American government because we're an American company. We are subject to American law. And that's
Wow.
the foundation
Okay.
of the so-called Patriot Act that has nothing to do with patriotism.
Hmm.
If it's a company that it's an American company head office, and you deal with their Canadian um, subsidiary, their Canadian division, their Canadian whatever, if the American company gets a demand from the American authorities, they can't say no.
Okay.
So they reach out and take the information they want. And it gets worse now because Canada, we've got border issues with the American government. And Canada just introduced its first substantive piece of legislation of this Parliament, Bill S2, the Strong Borders Act, which sounds wonderful to protect the border from
Yeah.
fentanyl and from contraband and all sorts of things. It is a massive piece of legislation, 16 different parts. And there's a couple of parts that really speak to the lack of privacy and how it is going to be undermined so that whether it's the American government, other governments, they will be able to make a production request, not a court order that's available as well, but a production request of organizations that provide a service to the public. A
So you
television
don't. So this
station,
is no warrant required.
no.
And if I remember right, this could actually give them access to your texts, your emails, who you're subscribing to, everything online, basically, right?
And more. I mean, this came out when I was at a technology conference in Banff and we were talking about it. And we're talking PhDs and researchers and funders and government people. And I said, well, it's very simple. All they'd have to do is call up the Banff Center and say, did Sharon Polsky stay here? Yes. How long? When did she arrive? How did she make her reservation? What vehicle was she in? Do you have any CCTV capturing her? Send it to us. And it's all just an inquiry. And they have 5 days to object, or else face some serious, serious penalties. Who's going to be able to get a lawyer and object in 5 days? Never mind. So they're going to roll over, provide the information, even if I am not the one under suspicion, but there is a suspicion that I might know something about the person that is under scrutiny.
Yeah, they're very, very concerning. Now, again, I know, police, they have a job to do, and we want to be protected and so forth. There really are organized criminal groups out there that wreak havoc. They do money laundering, all these kinds of things. There's security issues. So I guess there needs to be a balance, I suppose, to they need to be given the tools to investigate properly to catch the bad guys, but.
At what
I
price?
guess where's the balance here? I mean, should they need a warrant first? How would you see it?
Well, it depends who you ask. It's always a matter of perspective. And we are told it is to protect children and to protect people from human trafficking. Absolutely legitimate. Certainly, this sort of criminality is going on and it has to be investigated and stopped. But at what price?
Yeah.
When everybody, and something that it seems the lawmakers, the bureaucrats, even some members of law enforcement, there's a disconnect. It's as if the laws they want to put in to be able to scour our email, our messaging, our conduct, our thoughts won't apply to them, but it will. And they're saying, well, okay, nobody's going to look at your messages. It's going to be artificial intelligence. Okay, somebody can look at the messages though. And if the artificial intelligence gets it wrong, and really, Paul, I don't have the imagination to dream this stuff up. During COVID, there was a father whose infant son had an infection in his groin. He called the doctor because remember, COVID, we're not allowed to go out. We're not allowed to go to the doctor. We have to make a phone call. The doctor said, take a picture and send it to me so I can see what the problem is. Dad did as instructed, and immediately the artificial intelligence shut his Google account, which means his email, his texting, all of his entire records, his phone calls, his family photos, you name it. His life was on his Google account. It was shut under the suspicion that it was child sexual abuse material being communicated. At last count, he wasn't able to get to talk to anybody. His account remained closed because the artificial intelligence doesn't always get it right.
That is a serious concern. How many times? Now, I know that's, not going to be the norm, but how many times will that happen in a year? And again, that family's life is destroyed, at least for a time, if not, for a long time.
That's right.
Wow.
And even, fine, not a lot, but a fraction of 1% when you're talking hundreds of millions of users, billions of users, that's a lot of people whose lives are seriously affected. And I can give you other examples of how AI doesn't quite get it right sometimes, and it's cost people their homes, their jobs, their lives, their children. Seriously. And this is not just in one country, it's everywhere, because artificial intelligence isn't ready for prime time, but we're being told everybody's doing it. And there's a lot of investors investing in it in the hopes that, we were supposed to have fully autonomous cars by 2022.
Yeah, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves here, I think, for sure. I mean, another part of Bill C-2, the Strong Borders Act, is that it would be a criminal act to make a cash payment of $10,000 or more. So again, the idea to, limit the ability of criminal organizations to use cash to launder their money and so forth. But man, I'm wondering, is that just a move towards let's make digital currency mandatory. And the problem with digital currency, as I understand it, I mean, it's so widespread. If there is a breach, then it affects how many people and their bank accounts, right?
That's right. I mean, right now, one of the arguments for instituting centrally controlled, government-controlled digital currency is that occasionally you hear of a privately owned digital currency. Either the owner, disappears and he's the only one that had the password, so everybody's money is gone, or there's some nefarious activity, or the person is found to be not very honorable. Okay, fine, and how often does that happen? But as you say, it is a slippery slope to control. And when it comes to cash, in Quebec, they already have it in law that if you're caught with more than $2,000
Yeah.
on your person, that's criminal. You have to
So,
be able to explain why you're carrying that kind of money.
so what happens with, again, the guys selling fruit and vegetables at the side of sometimes they get a ton of money in one day. Well, what are they going to do with it?
That's right. And do you really want to be the one to have to explain that I'm leaving my shop? We had a sale. There was cash sales. I'm on my way to the bank. Really prove it. How do you
Yeah.
prove something like that? It's makes
This
people
is
very
so
uncomfortable.
problematic. I'm up
And
against the
again,
clock here,
the
Sharon.
fear of
Any
retribution.
any final thoughts on where we're going with this digital currency, digital ID over the next decade, and what we can do about it? I guess.
In some ways, we're going down the right path when it is for medical and scientific discovery, to speed things up, to take the guessing game out of it, sure. But when it comes to imposing these things on us in our personal lives and giving no real choice, I think we're going down a very slippery slope very quickly. And as you've said a couple of times, Paul, we need to speak up, educate ourselves about it, and speak up to our elected representatives
I
who
think
also
I think
need
that's the key
education.
right there. I have to leave it for time's sake, but
Yeah.
Sharon Polsky, our guest today. Thank you, Sharon. Again, she's the president of the Privacy and Access Council of Canada. X at Polsky Says. You can check out what she's thinking. Thank you so much for watching. Appreciate it. Again, WizeUp.ca. Don't forget to hit subscribe.